We're going to get in the weeds today with a Photoshop trick that's going to increase your click-through rate. And so you can get this result.
This look and this look, which will help increase your click-through rate.
And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. You guys are going to be hearing from Zach Sparazzo. Zach Sparazzo is the COO of what we do here at Blessed Scout Studios. He's been with me for years, and he is going to walk you through this exact lesson.
Okay, so we're inside of Photoshop here, and this is the finished thumbnail, but I'm gonna show you how we got here, specifically how we got this really interesting bright cartoon effect on Ruslan and his guest here. So if we work backwards, I'm gonna get rid of these layers in the layer panel here. And this is what the original guests look like. Now, when you pull them in, you might think, okay, how do I put some stuff behind him? I need to cut him out. And then how do I make it brighter? Some of the biggest things you can do on YouTube is to make your thumbnails pop and stand out. I think it's the statistic is 80% of users on YouTube use dark mode. So you actually don't want your thumbnails dark and have a lot of black space because it's gonna blend in with the interface. In fact, you actually want to make them brighter, as punchy as possible. So here's what we like to do for almost every single cutout, every single image we use is like, how do we make it brighter and punchier? Now, if you go to the object selection tool here in the left, then you can right click and see object selection. So this is quick selection, object selection. And then I'm gonna drag this over. It uses a really cool, powerful AI to highlight the person, the foreground. Give it a second. And then it'll highlight the foreground. We can cut them out, and then that's how we can get our character. So for time's sake, sometimes I'll go in here and clean it up with if I right click on the object selection, hit quick selection, I can clean it up by holding Alt and then clicking. I can do a negative select. So here that's a negative select. I'm gonna Control Z that, or you can click and do a positive select. I'm gonna Control Z that as well. But for time's sake, I'm gonna call that cutout good. Now I'm gonna right click and hit layer via copy. Now what that's gonna do is that now that is going to create a cutout of our character here, right? Our guest. So now I can edit just the image of him. Now here is how you make that really cool cartoon effect to make things pop and look amazing. Go to the very top, you'll see this tab that says filter. We're gonna click filter and we're gonna go down to camera raw filter. Now this is gonna pull up a window. Let me frame this up. Now this is gonna pull up a window in which we can make edits to the color and the texture and all those things. So here's what we do. We wanna make it bright, that's right, that's the first policy. So brighten the exposure. But now we don't wanna lose the contrast. You can see he's getting a little faded, right? And purely color, not off of any substances. So I'm gonna bump the contrast all the way. I'm bringing back the difference between the blacks and the whites, right? Just like Martin Luther. Closing in on the differences, bring them together, unity, right? But as you can see, the image here is getting bright in his skin tones. So I wanna lower the highlights. I wanna lower the whites. And then I'm gonna bump the shadows a bit. We're gonna get some of that detail that's in the shadows back. Now, one of the most important things is creating contrast. It's how your eye catches shapes and objects. And so these settings are gonna be different for every camera, but that being said, the general direction in which these goes will always stay the same. So sometimes your contrast won't need to be as high, but it might just need to be up a tiny bit. Sometimes for Ruslan's cameras, it needs to go up all the way. Sometimes your highlights need to go down all the way. Sometimes they don't. So adjust depending on your settings. These aren't exact ratios or dials that you need to hit every single time. But this direction, up exposure, up contrast, down highlights, up shadows, down whites, and then down in the blacks as well to bring some of that contrast back. So I'm really trying to make this a contrasty, punchy image. And now I feel like we have a little more space to go brighter. So I'm gonna bump the exposure at the top as well. And then I'm gonna bring the highlights and the whites down to match his skin tone. Now, if we just toggle this, that is before, that's after, that's before, that's after. So you can tell we're already making this asset that's in the thumbnail brighter, which is gonna be amazing for click-through rate because it's making things pop more. But it doesn't end there. Here's how we get this really interesting cartoon effect. If you go down to effects, you'll see Texture, clarity, dehaze, vignette, grain. All we do is touch texture. We're about to smooth everything out, but we want to add texture in before we smooth things out so that it doesn't look like, a blurry image. So I'm gonna throw the texture all the way up. It's just gonna bring texture back in the image, if that makes sense. I mean, literally brings texture if you see that difference, right? And then we're gonna go down to detail. Now we're pretty much hijacking this noise reduction effect to get this cartoon look. So I'm gonna bump the sharpness. We're gonna bring this detail back, and we're gonna bump the noise reduction fairly high. Now play with these settings because you don't wanna lose a lot of detail. Like I don't like bumping the settings all the way and then you start to lose some of his facial hair. But the noise reduction is what smooths over the image and makes that greater than life look, right? That cartoon look. So I think I'm happy with the noise reduction there. If we toggle these, it's just a slight little effect, but it makes it a little bit smooth over, and then we'll hit OK. So now you can see the difference. Boom, so now we have it nice and brighter. I think it looks absolutely wonderful. Now you can grab this and you can scale it up and put it in the area that you want to use this asset in. Now, if I toggle on Ruslan here, toggle on the background, toggle on his cutout. So then you want to grab the guest cutout and move it above all the assets that you're going to have it beneath. Boom. And just like that, we have a nice punchy thumbnail that you would repeat those same steps for your own cutout and other assets that are in the image. But this helps us make, it helps us make this cartoony bright effect, so it brightens up the image. It also helps us turn images that maybe aren't the best quality and smooth them out and make them look better than they originally were. So it's an absolutely amazing tool. The Camera Raw filter, it is the most amazing tool we've ever used for editing thumbnails.
Hey, if you're a newer, smaller creator and you want to figure out a system that could help you develop predictable growth and learn exactly how we've been able to grow all three of my channels here on YouTube, check out this free webinar that me and Zach have coming up just for you. It's free, and you can sign up for that by hitting the link in the pinned comment below.